Joining us now is Mick Mulroy, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East and ABC News national security and defense analyst. Mick, we learned just now that the U.S. is pausing military aid to Ukraine. How big a blow is that to their fight against Russia?
Juju, it's a big blow. I mean, not only the aid that was on the way and already been approved, but the potential that no aid will be coming in the future. Right now, Ukraine is already outnumbered vastly. So about 3-1 on troops, about 5-1 on artillery, and all the way up to 10-1 on tanks and armored personnel carrier. So any pause or disruption or stopping of aid to Ukraine will have a big impact on Ukraine in the battlefield. And likely it'll push Russia further away from the negotiation table as they'll see this as a win and things going in their direction. So it could actually extend this war substantially. I know that's not the intent, but that could be what happened, as Russia will have less of an incentive to come back to the table.
And that's precisely what Zelensky said. Now, the previous administration, with broad congressional support, I might add, sent about $65 billion in military aid since Russia's invasion. Can Ukraine win this war without U.S. assistance? Because we saw European allies step up.
Well, they certainly don't want to try. They need the assistance. It's been substantial, and so has Europe. But if this stays the course and we do not turn back aid or turn aid back on and actually contribute more, then Europe's going to have to step up substantially. They might have to double their contributions. And of course, there's also this talk about the frozen Russian assets that are in Europe. They're up to $325 billion. So they could make up for this. But essentially, the way the West could be strong on this is to be united, not cut any aid to Ukraine, and actually threaten Russia with increased aid if they don't come to the negotiation table. There has been almost no discussion of what Russia would give up for this or whether they would be even willing to negotiate a ceasefire.
And of course, this dramatic pause comes on the heels of that disastrous Oval Office meetup on Friday. How could this move impact U.S. and Ukrainian relations moving forward?
Well, certainly that was a setback for the relationships between the two countries. But ultimately, it's a much broader question than personalities, even the personalities of presidents. This is in the U.S.'s interest to ensure Russia is not successful in Ukraine. If they are, they could easily move on to another country, potentially even a NATO country. It is the United States versus Russia. It's not the United States versus Ukraine. Ukraine is a country that's 28 times smaller than Russia. They need their partners and allies to win this. Most people didn't think they'd be still standing after 3 weeks, let alone 3 years. But this is a much bigger question than that one meeting, and I think that needs to come through.
In many ways, we're seeing a global realignment. We saw over the weekend a much different reception from European leaders towards President Zelensky and Ukraine. How long can assistance from Europe alone sustain Ukraine's efforts?
Well, it looks like Europe's looking at two things. Obviously, increasing their own direct military aid to Ukraine, but also increasing their own military capacity. Because of this apparent realignment of the U.S. Foreign policy more in line with Russia, Europe's very concerned about the NATO alliance and whether Article 5 in that alliance would hold true and support them. So they are increasing their military substantially, according to every statement made by European leaders, and potentially building this European Defense Force, which would be an integrated military across Europe, something that I think should have been happening a long time ago, but certainly right now, because of the statements by the United States on their relationship with Russia, for example, who started the war in Ukraine, obviously Russia, that has really concerned our European allies, and they are stepping up, at least rhetorically right now, but hopefully that will be followed by action.
How much damage, if any, is there to American global leadership? The Trump administration might argue this is what should have happened, that Europe should have stepped up to pay a bigger share of this war effort.
And I certainly think there's a case to be made, not only for a bigger share of the war effort, as it's right on their doorstep, but the fact that Europe really has let their militaries not be what they should be, because they could always rely on the United States. And I think they should always rely on the United States, but that should be as a partner, an equal partner. I think we're seeing that right now. But this will have an effect on that relationship long term.
Mick Mulroy, thank you so much for your perspective. Appreciate it.